7 people sat together last night, and somehow the conversation turned toward you. At first, your name was mentioned casually. Then the room changed. One person stopped smiling. Another leaned forward. Someone who had been unusually quiet finally began speaking. And before that conversation ended, 7 different people had revealed 7 completely different things they believed about your personality. But here is what makes this strange. They did not all agree about you. Some admired you. Some misunderstood you. One person defended you. One person admitted something nobody expected. And one person said something about you that made everyone else in the room go silent. What they discussed was not your appearance, your money, or the things you own. They were talking about something far more personal. Your character. Your energy. The way you behave when nobody understands what you are carrying inside. And by the end of that conversation, someone finally said, "I think we have completely misunderstood this person." Stay with this, because the 7th person's confession changes the meaning of everything that was said before it. The first person started the conversation with something surprising. They said you are much more observant than people realize. You may not always confront someone immediately. You may not react to every strange comment, every change in behavior, or every uncomfortable situation. And because of that, some people assume you did not notice. But you noticed. You noticed the tone. You noticed who suddenly became distant. You noticed who only contacted you when they needed something. You noticed who celebrated you publicly but became strangely quiet whenever something good actually happened for you. You noticed the difference between words and behavior. The first person said, "That is what people underestimate about them. They see more than they say." Someone across the room immediately agreed. And then something unexpected happened. The second person revealed that they once believed your silence meant weakness. They admitted it openly. There had apparently been a situation where you could have argued, exposed someone, or defended yourself aggressively. But you did not. You walked away. At the time, this person thought you had lost. Last night, they admitted they were wrong. Because eventually, the truth revealed itself without you having to destroy anyone to prove your point. And that made them reconsider your entire personality. They said, maybe their silence wasn't weakness. Maybe they already knew the truth would eventually speak for itself. That statement stayed in the room. Because several people suddenly remembered moments when you had done exactly that. You did not chase every misunderstanding. You did not explain yourself to everyone. You did not beg people to see your intentions. Sometimes you simply stepped back. And that is one of the most misunderstood things about you. People occasionally think that because you are quiet, you have nothing to say. They do not realize that sometimes you are quiet because you have already understood everything. But then the third person interrupted. And their opinion was completely different. They said you can be difficult to read. One day you can appear warm, open, generous, and deeply caring. Another day you become distant. Not cruel. Not disrespectful. Just distant. And people wonder what happened. The third person said they finally understood why. You do not withdraw because you suddenly stop caring. You withdraw when something feels wrong. When you feel repeatedly ignored, taken for granted, disrespected, or emotionally exhausted, something inside you begins closing the door. Usually slowly. You give chances before that happens. More chances than people realize. You forgive things you never mention. You overlook behavior that hurts you because you want to understand the other person's side. But eventually, there comes a moment when something changes. And when that moment arrives, you may still smile. You may still speak politely. But emotionally, you have already started leaving. The third person said something that surprised everyone. The scary thing is that by the time they finally walk away, they have probably forgiven the same thing 100 times. Nobody laughed. Because several people knew exactly what that meant. Someone in that room may have experienced this side of you personally. They may have received your patience again and again without understanding that patience has a limit. And now they understand something they did not understand before. Your final goodbye rarely begins on the day you leave. It begins much earlier. It begins when you realize your effort is becoming one-sided. Then came the fourth person. This person defended you. Someone had apparently described you as too guarded. The fourth person disagreed immediately. They said you were not always guarded. Life taught you to become careful. There is a difference. You may have once trusted quickly, loved openly, believed words easily, given people the benefit of the doubt. And somewhere along the way, experience taught you that not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Not everyone who promises to stay actually stays. Not everyone asking personal questions genuinely cares about the answers. So now you observe. You take your time. You watch whether actions match words. You notice consistency. And perhaps most importantly, you notice how someone behaves when they no longer need anything from you. The fourth person said, they are not cold. They are careful. That single sentence changed the direction of the conversation. Because suddenly, people began discussing another side of you. Your loyalty. Someone remembered something you did for another person when almost nobody else was around. You helped without announcing it. You supported someone without turning it into a performance. You protected something private instead of using it as gossip. And that brought them to the fifth person. The fifth person said your strongest quality may also be the thing that has hurt you the most. You care deeply. Much deeper than you usually show. When you love someone, whether romantically, emotionally, or as family or friendship, you do not do it halfway. You remember details. Small details. The sentence someone said months ago. The thing they were worried about. The dream they told you once. The date they thought everyone had forgotten. The change in their voice when they say, I'm fine, but clearly are not. You remember. And because you remember, you sometimes give people a level of consideration they never realize they are receiving. But the fifth person revealed the painful side of this. You may secretly expect people to care with the same depth. Not because you demand perfection, but because you assume people will naturally give what you naturally give. And when they do not, disappointment hits harder. You begin asking yourself questions. Did I expect too much? Did I misunderstand the connection? Did they ever care the way I did? But perhaps the better question is this. Were you expecting too much, or were you simply expecting something from the wrong person? That question created another silence. Then someone said your name again. And this time, the sixth person spoke. This was where the conversation became intense. Because the sixth person had apparently been watching your recent transformation. They said something about you has changed. You are becoming harder to manipulate. Harder to guilt. Harder to convince with empty promises. Harder to impress with words. And certain people do not like it. Not because you have become a bad person. Because the older version of you was easier for them to access. The older version of you might have answered immediately. Explained everything. Given another chance. Accepted another excuse. Ignored another red flag. Stayed in situations long after your peace had disappeared. But something is changing. Now you are learning that protecting your peace does not require permission. You are learning that saying no does not automatically make you selfish. You are learning that someone being disappointed by your boundary does not mean the boundary is wrong. The sixth person said, "They've changed." And someone immediately corrected them. No. Maybe they're finally becoming who they were supposed to be. That sentence shifted everything. Because there are two types of people who notice your growth. The first type becomes inspired. The second type becomes uncomfortable. Why? Because your growth changes their access to you. When you stop tolerating certain behavior, the people benefiting from your lack of boundaries suddenly call you difficult. When you stop explaining every decision, they call you secretive. When you stop chasing, they call you distant. When you begin respecting yourself, they may accuse you of changing. And technically, they are right. You are changing. But not every change is a loss. Sometimes change is recovery. Sometimes change is clarity. Sometimes change is finally choosing yourself after spending too much time abandoning yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. Then the seventh person spoke. Until this moment, they had barely said anything. They had listened to everyone else describe you. Observant. Quiet. Guarded. Loyal. Sensitive. Changing. But they had another perspective. And apparently, this person knows more about you than the others realized. They said, "You are all talking about how this person behaves. Nobody is talking about why." Everyone turned toward them. And then came the confession. They said you have carried things privately that would have changed how people treated you if they had known. There were days when you showed up for people while you were emotionally exhausted yourself. Times when you encouraged someone while secretly needing encouragement. Times when you smiled because you did not want your problems becoming someone else's burden. Times when you kept moving because stopping felt more frightening than continuing. And people saw the strength. But they never saw the cost. That was the revelation. Your personality is not simply something you were born with. Parts of it were built through experience. Your independence may have grown from moments when nobody came. Your caution may have grown from trust that was broken. Your ability to read a room may have grown from needing to notice emotional changes quickly. Your humor may sometimes have become a way to survive uncomfortable moments. Your silence may have become protection. Your kindness may have become a conscious decision not to become like the people who hurt you. And your strength? That may have been built on days when you had absolutely no choice except to continue. The seventh person looked around the room and said something nobody expected. I don't think this person realizes how strong they actually are. And suddenly the conversation was no longer gossip. It became recognition. Because sometimes people discuss you without understanding you. They see one chapter and assume they know the entire story. They see your reaction but not what happened before it. They see the boundary but not the repeated disrespect that created it. They see you leave but not how long you tried to stay. They see your silence but not the conversation happening inside your mind. They see confidence but not the battles it took to build it. And maybe this is something you need to remember. Not everyone will understand you correctly. Some people will love your personality. Some will find it intimidating. Some will misunderstand your independence as arrogance. Some will misunderstand your kindness as weakness. Some will mistake your privacy for secrecy. Others will recognize something deeper. But the opinion that matters most cannot permanently belong to 7 people sitting in a room. It has to belong to you. Because imagine spending your entire life adjusting yourself according to conversations you were never invited to hear. One person says you are too quiet, so you become louder. Someone says you are too emotional, so you hide your feelings. Someone says you are too ambitious, so you shrink your dreams. Someone says you are too independent, so you pretend to need people. Eventually, you would become a collection of other people's preferences. And somewhere underneath all those adjustments, the real you would disappear. That cannot be your story. But something else was revealed during that conversation. One of those 7 people had underestimated you badly. They believed you would remain exactly where they remembered you. They thought you would keep accepting the same behavior. Keep waiting. Keep forgiving without change. Keep doubting yourself. But when they heard the others describing the person you are becoming, something hit them. They realized they may no longer have the same place in your future. That realization disturbed them. Because people often assume they have unlimited time with someone. Unlimited chances. Unlimited forgiveness. Unlimited access. Until suddenly they discover that the person they kept taking for granted has learned how to walk away. And there was one more confession. Someone admitted they admire something about you that they have never told you directly. Your ability to rebuild. They have watched you experience disappointment and somehow return wiser. They have watched plans fail and seen you create new ones. They have watched people leave and seen you eventually rediscover yourself. They expected certain experiences to permanently destroy your confidence. But you kept rebuilding. Maybe slowly. Maybe imperfectly. But you kept going. And that is why your personality confuses some people. You can be soft without being powerless. You can forgive without forgetting the lesson. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can miss someone and still know they should not return. You can be afraid and still move forward. You can have a good heart and still have boundaries. Those things are not contradictions. They are maturity. And the 7 people finally began realizing that there are versions of you they have never met. There is the version of you that appears around people you trust. The version that laughs freely. The version that does not analyze every word. The version that becomes playful and spontaneous. Then there is the version people meet after breaking your trust. Quieter. More careful. Less available. And sometimes they complain that you changed without acknowledging what caused the change. But the most important version is the one emerging now. The version that no longer needs everyone to understand. The version learning that peace can feel unfamiliar when you have spent too long around chaos. The version realizing that being alone temporarily is sometimes healthier than being surrounded by people who make you feel lonely. The version becoming selective about who gets access to your time. And the version beginning to understand that your personality does not need to be universally accepted to be valuable. Last night's conversation ended differently from how it began. Your name entered that room as a topic. It left as a question. Who are you really becoming? Because everyone there had known a different version of you. One remembered your kindness. One remembered your silence. One remembered your loyalty. One remembered your boundaries. One remembered the old you. One noticed the new you. And the 7th understood something the others had missed. There is still more to you than any of them know. And perhaps there is still more to you than even you know. You have not met every version of yourself yet. You have not seen yourself after every future victory. You have not experienced every relationship that will teach you what healthy love feels like. You have not walked into every room where your presence will finally be appreciated instead of questioned. You have not reached every destination your current struggles are preparing you for. There are parts of your personality still being formed. Confidence that has not fully arrived. Wisdom still developing. Boundaries still strengthening. Dreams still becoming clearer. And one day, people who knew you during an older chapter may meet you again and realize they are speaking to someone completely different. Not because you became fake. Because you grew. And maybe the greatest shock from those 7 people was not what they said about you. Maybe it was what their conversation revealed. People notice more than they tell you. They notice when your energy changes. They notice when you stop chasing. They notice when your confidence grows. They notice when you become quieter around certain people. They notice when you finally begin choosing yourself. But you cannot build your identity around their observations. Take the useful lessons. Release the unnecessary opinions. Keep the kindness that belongs to your character. Keep the loyalty for people who deserve it. Keep the sensitivity that allows you to understand others. But protect those qualities with wisdom. You do not have to become cold to become strong. You do not have to become cruel to create boundaries. And you do not have to explain your entire story before your choices deserve respect. Last night, 7 people tried to describe your personality. But none of them possessed the complete picture. Because the complete picture is still being painted. And the person they were discussing? That person is still becoming. Still learning. Still rebuilding. Still discovering how powerful life becomes when you stop asking everyone else who you should be. So if people are talking about you, let them talk. If they misunderstand you, give truth time. If someone underestimated you, let your growth answer them. And if someone finally recognizes your value, appreciate it without becoming dependent on their approval. Because there is something far more powerful than walking into a room and wondering what 7 people think about you. It is walking into that room already knowing who you are.